Hello and welcome to TNT. In the 12 years I've lived here in Thailand, I've never seen such a profound and almost instant switch of demographic from one lot of travellers to another. It's pretty obvious if you look at the statistics of arrivals that over the past 8 weeks there's been a drastic shift from the most numerous number of travellers being from India to now by far the most numerous being from Russia. Now, I think it's not unfair to say that a lot of these people coming from Russia are not necessarily coming just because they like the beaches and the temples in Thailand. I think a lot of these people are getting out of Russia. Some of them may be even considered as refugees. Now, of course, we're very happy to take their money. A lot of these people have come cashed up, but it's not what you would describe as sustainable tourism. And if you look at the statistics of the other nationalities coming to Thailand at the moment, those numbers actually haven't risen much in the past 6 weeks, especially the Indian tourists, which have stayed stable and in some cases, including here in Phuket, have started to drop in number. So I think it's very important for people in the tourism industry at the moment to analyse exactly what's going on at the moment, not pat themselves on the back for the many tourists that are coming here. We want the tourist numbers to rise, but the healthiest way for those numbers to rise are from all parts of the world and not just one particular demographic. But we do have lots to talk about on TNT today, so let's get started with the biggest stories around Thailand and the region. And thanks for dropping in on Thursday. It's the 17th of November. Now, APEC is on at the moment. A lot of the big names will arrive in the next 24 hours. Interestingly, though, for most people, it's literally a 5-day long weekend. And that's probably going to be the most important thing about APEC to a lot of people, either sadly or otherwise. But anyway, the meeting is in progress. And the nation's reporting that security's been beefed up ahead of the APEC summit in Bangkok, just saying that it sort of started yesterday, but a lot of the big names and the bigger meetings will start on Friday, tomorrow. So to this story, the world leaders will gather at the 2-day regional meeting from Friday to discuss trade and economic cooperation. Heavy security presence and riot police were seen in the city roads yesterday, leading to the Queen Sirikit National Convention Centre. Trained sniffer dogs were spotted working on the ground surrounding the venue. And down the bottom, again, another call from the National Police Chief. As this is a global level meeting, we don't want to see any disruption. If any chaos from political protests were to happen, the police would have to enforce the law and implement it effectively, says the National Police Chief in, well, I suppose somewhat of a threat. And they've got some photos as well showing police at the ready stationed around the city. And the police chief goes on to warn against any political protest and said police would enforce the law effectively in the event of any disruption. So the protesters have already signalled that they are going to be mounting some protests, although at the moment I don't think they're going to be particularly large. This from Thai PBS World. Protesters may try to get closer to the APEC meeting venue, noting that they've been given a protest location which is some 4 kilometres away from the Queen Sirikit Convention Centre. So in the what do we want and when do we want it stakes, they say they want to get APEC leaders and delegates to acknowledge that there are people in Thailand who are against the current government. I'm pretty sure the APEC delegates wouldn't be surprised to hear that there are people against, well, any government in the world. And they say that they're going to try to attempt to rally closer to the venue, which may put them in direct confrontation with police. And the young protest leader saying she's advised the security forces to refrain from using any force against the protesters, claiming it would paint Thailand in a negative light in the eyes of the international community. Well, the Thai police generally have shown quite a lot of restraint in regards to the protests over the last 2 years, which of course have all been about the Thai constitution, the role of the monarchy, and trying to evict the current Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha from office. But they have got the water cannons out a few times, and those sort of videos or photos at this time would certainly get coverage, and it would probably get international coverage. And down the bottom there, the protesters issued a statement calling on the Thai government to drop its Bangkok goals on BCG economy and for the PM Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign, ending his role as host of the APEC summit. The likelihood of the Prime Minister standing up on either Friday or Saturday and saying, "Oh, I think I'm going to resign," are absolutely zero. That's just not going to happen. And it's reported that protesters will rally at the Asok intersection closer to the convention centre tomorrow, which is today. So, yeah, that's a pretty busy intersection. You've got the intersection of the Sukhumvit MRT line and the SkyTrain BTS station. I understand that they're actually closing most of that intersection down, certainly during parts of the day, and so I think they can expect some disruption there, protesters or otherwise. Well, there's the face of some of the protesters, once again, sort of younger students who are not necessarily the red shirt or the yellow shirt sort of political protesters. These are young, disenfranchised people. I always think it's good and healthy for young people to get out and protest, to learn about the political process, to learn about negotiation, and to make their voices heard. There's always a time and a place. This may not necessarily be the time or place, but of course for protesters, when the media's got the cameras out, that is the best time to protest. The coconuts.co, they've also got a report about some of the protests saying stop APEC. Activists to protest against summit kicking off in Bangkok yesterday. The rally dubbed Stop APEC 2022 is aimed at calling out the military-backed government and its Prime Minister, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, for hosting a summit that protesters say fails to represent the voices of the people. And another part of the statement says the APEC agreement would bind Thailand to pressure from other countries to implement policies that only benefit venture capitalists, while the public cannot access these benefits at all. So nothing really specific there. These are just young, pissed off people. The protesters have been prohibited from holding rallies at the summit venue or at any of the 19 hotels where delegates stay, and the Bangkok governor has urged the protesters not to disrupt the summit by marching to other locations. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the next 2 or 3 days. The media are doing anything they can to try and find a headline to make out of this APEC meeting. There's a lot of money being spent, a lot of billboards, a lot of face for the Thai authorities, so we'll just have to see how it all pans out over the next few days. We should thank our sponsors, 5 Star Marine. Thank you very much for taking a lot of people out to beautiful islands off Phuket in your fleet of the Lucas boats. So there's a link in the description under this video. Whilst you're down there, you might just click that subscribe button. That would be very helpful. You're watching TNT. You're watching the TNT program. Thank you for dropping in. In the past, there's been plenty of these meetings around Southeast Asia, and it's sort of become a bit of a popular trope where they get out with the national costume or a version of the national costumes provided for the delegates, and there's the parade of silly shirts, I call it, and sometimes the group photo. Now, sometimes the shirts that they come up with look great. Other times, well, they've left a little bit to be desired in the fashion stakes. And people, of course, have mocked them, myself included. Haven't quite gone this far, though, where from coconuts.co, again, the G20 meeting, this is the meeting that was held in Bali in Indonesia. Foreign commentators face backlash over uncultured tweets mocking traditional Indian clothes. So these are 2 foreign correspondents who were there in Bali having a go at the shirts. What on earth are these idiots wearing, says Maya Tusi, who's an Iranian correspondent. And Sophie Cochran says, why are they all dressed the same and like that? While Tusi's tweet may have been construed more as a dig at the people in the picture than their fashion sense, he's prompted severe backlash from Indonesians. Well, look, I can hardly comment about people's shirts, but as far as I can see, the shirts look I don't know, pretty smart. They're certainly tailored. Here's a bit of an explanation. Some netizens pointed out that Trudeau, Sunak and Schwab wore shirts made of endek fabric, and then another two were wearing batik shirts, which were also traditional to Indonesia. And some of the social media saying you were cancelled by Iran, now you'll be cancelled by Indonesia. So the battle of the shirts in the G20 meeting, again, the media trying to find something to talk about in regards to these summits and conferences. You're watching TNT. To our next topic today, and we're back to the Bangkok Post, and this story, Anutin calls for patience as debate over hemp bill drags on. This certainly has been dragging on since June the 6th this year, when he delisted the drug cannabis from the list of illicit drugs in Category 5 in Thailand, but did so without any legislation controlling the issue. And a new announcement categorising flowers or buds of the cannabis plant as controlled herbs is a temporary measure, he says, to curb the proliferation of recreational cannabis use while the deliberation of the bill on cannabis and hemp continues to drag on. Well, it's really Anutin that's caused all this confusion, so it's all very well for him to be doing this backtracking at the moment, but he's the one that's caused the problems. And he's the reason why people walking around quietly having a little bit of a smoke are wondering if they're actually doing it legally or not. Well, after this announcement last Friday, it would appear that it is still illegal to recreationally smoke cannabis, certainly in public, and certainly without a medical reason to do so. This latest announcement made last Friday by the Ministry of Public Health is only one of the many small legal measures being used to control the recreational use of cannabis that's increased rapidly following the decriminalisation in June. Well, I think it's quite obvious that Anutin's been forced to do some quite swift backtracking here, although he's still very opaque in the language he's using to describe what he's trying to do. Mr. Anutin was responding to concerns raised by a senator over the increase in the number of shops openly selling cannabis to buyers, especially in Bangkok's main tourist districts, including Khao San Road and along the Sukhumvit area. I think people in places like Pattaya, Chiang Mai and Phuket, also probably Samui, Hua Hin, would also notice that there are shops openly selling cannabis now for, ostensibly, recreational use. The senator said on Tuesday the country is now critically in need of a specific law to curb the recreational use of cannabis. He believes there is still enough time for the House of Representatives to finish its deliberation of the draft law before the parliamentary session ends on February the 28th. So that's when the parliament will probably end, an election will be called, and a new election will be held probably in May. When the new House sits, my gut feeling is it will probably be led by the opposition parties, which have already opposed this cannabis bill. So if I can't get something through by the end of February, then I would say this bill is dead in the water. When the latest notice on controlling the herb, this is down the bottom, is published in the Royal Gazette, the sale of cannabis flowers or buds will become illegal, except when they're sold by parties specially permitted to supply those materials for medicinal purposes. Well, certainly a little bit more clarification on the matter from even Anutin, who I think is being forced to make these changes and make it quite clear what they're trying to do with this cannabis bill. Now, there are people who have spent a lot of money investing into cultivation. There's people who have spent a lot of money on setting up retail stores, quite elaborate retail stores, some of them even franchising them around the country. And the problem is that a lot of people now assume that Thailand has become the Amsterdam of Asia. That's clearly not the case. And we're still waiting for some sort of legislation that clarifies exactly what they're trying to do. I'm wondering if the politicians actually do know what they're trying to do. There is also the issue that the genie's out of the bottle. How do you then get the situation now, this sort of open slather, back into the bottle? That's probably going to be very difficult, which means we're going to have to get some cannabis bill passed before the end of this parliament. And that may not happen. If the opposition parties win the next election, then this cannabis bill is dead in the water. It will never get passed. And then how are they going to reverse the situation? That's going to be a political hot potato as well. Interesting times ahead. We go to our final story today, and this from the patianews.com. A Frenchman missing in Suratani, and there is, well, probably the only photo or a photo of the gentleman. So it looks like a gentleman called Golino Tislano, a French national aged around 30, checked into a Calsoc hotel in resort. Calsoc is a very beautiful part, sort of between Khao Lak in Phang Nga and the sort of Suratani township, but a very, very beautiful part of the world indeed. On November the 12th at 10 a.m, Mr. Tislano had breakfast at the resort. He talked with the resort owner about going for a walk in a nearby forest. He's not been seen since November the 14th. So if you do know anything about that gentleman, if you know him or know his whereabouts, the Suratani police would like to hear from you. And with that, I thank you very much for watching today. Thank you to 5 Star Marine for their sponsorship. Please subscribe to the channel if you get a moment, and we'll see you again tomorrow.